Hello everyone, these are the 20 most anticipated video games of 2024. In 2024, we will need to seriously try to repeat the year 2023, which is very full of good video games, and the console exclusives are not very rosy yet. It is clear that many of them have not yet been announced and will make themselves felt this year. But in any case, there will be a lot of interesting games in this 2024 year. We are waiting for both the continuation of our favorite franchises Another Like, a dragon, and completely new games Black Myth, Wukong. But still there will be sequels and remakes. And some of them are long-suffering and rather delayed. This year's Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, The Wolf Among Us 2, Silent Hill 2, Vampire the Masquerade, Bloodlines 2 are finally due to be released, S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. Heart of Chornobyl, and hopefully many others. For now, let's take a closer look at the new items that should appear this 2024. Let's get started. To begin with, Prince of Persia is due to be released on January 18th, The Lost Crown on all major platforms. The legendary franchise is returning to its roots. The new Prince of Persia will be a side-view platformer. The main character Sargon, not the prince, but his bodyguard, will fight with opponents and bosses, jump and solve puzzles. The first trailers and gameplay of The Lost Crown were ambiguously received, but apparently many managed to forget that the franchise was originally a platformer. Because the last big game of the Prince of Persia series, The Forgotten Sands, was a third-person action game released back in 2010. In any case, we are waiting, because we have not seen anything serious about the Prince of Persia for a long time. Maybe this is only the first impetus for a serious game in the future. Next, on January 26th, fans of the Eastern Atmosphere will be able to play the new Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. This is another part of the long-running Like a Dragon franchise, aka Yakuza. Infinite Wealth is not an offshoot, there are a lot of them in the series, but a continuation of the main line and a direct sequel to Yakuza, Like a Dragon 2020. What will surprise you with the new game? Firstly, a new location. The plot will unfold not only in Japan, but also in Hawaii. Secondly, the developers promise a record duration for the franchise in the region of hundreds of hours only for the main storyline. It's scary to imagine how long it will take to complete all the side tasks that Yakuza is famous for. On February 2nd, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League should finally reach our screens. Rocksteady Studio is known and loved for Batman, Arkham, but the last part of this series, Batman, Arkham Knight, was released back in 2015. And Insomniac Games' Marvel's Spider-Man has since taken the lead in the segment of video game superheroics. Will Rocksteady be able to return to its niche? We believe in the best. In Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, players will take control of a Suicide Squad consisting of Harley Quinn, Deadshot, Captain Boomerang, and the Shark King. And the main villains will be superheroes from the Justice League: Batman, Superman, Flash, Green Lantern, who were brainwashed by Brainiac. The concern is that the game is strongly based on the principles of MMO action games' constant connection to the network. Sale of combat passes for individual money and was postponed twice, from 2020 to May 2023, and then to the current date. We hope that Rocksteady has spent the past year wisely and changed its approach to development. On February 29th, we will be pleased with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the second part of the legendary remake. The original Final Fantasy VII game was released in 1997 and became a truly revolutionary part of the Japanese RPG series, thanks to which Western players joined its ranks. Unsurprisingly, Square Enix wanted to re-release the game and wrap the complex dramatic plot and non-trivial setting in more modern graphics. The remake was divided into 3 independent games. Final Fantasy VII Remake was released in 2020, and Rebirth is its direct sequel. The next part, so far unnamed and without a release date, is also planned. The plot starts immediately after the events of Remake. when the main characters leave the city of Midgar. On March 20th, we will be visited by a brand new Alone in the Dark. This is another restart of this venerable horror series, which started back in 1990. The new part partially repeats the plot of the first game. Detectives Emily Hartwood and Edward Carnby travel to an ancient mansion to investigate the disappearance of Jeremy Hartwood, Emily's uncle. The new Alone in the Dark is trying to repeat the success of the recent Resident Evil remakes. It will be a survival horror with a third-person view. Only the multiple postponements are confusing. The game was supposed to be released back in October 2023. Then the release moved to January 2024 and then to March. In any case, we are waiting. A fresh horror in the known universe is very useful to us. On March 22nd, Dragon's Dogma 2 is released. In 2024, Capcom will surprise not with another remake of Resident Evil or a new part of Monster Hunter, but with the continuation of its cult action RPG Dragon's Dogma, released in 2012. Ideologically, the sequel does not differ much from the original. The action takes place in a fantasy world. The player can choose different classes: knight, thief, magician, and others. Together with allies, you need to fight monsters and complete different quests. The main selling feature of Dragon's Dogma 2 is, again, in the first part there will be a flexible combat system, thanks to which you can realistically and effectively deal with huge monsters like Cyclops, Griffins, and dragons. Black Myth: Wukong will be released on August 20th. Action RPG based on the medieval Chinese epic journey to the West. The player will have to fight many monsters and powerful bosses while controlling Sun Wukong, the Monkey King. The gameplay of Black Myth: Wukong is made with an eye on games from the From Software studio. You should expect a high level of difficulty and constant replays of the same moments, at which the hero will die until he learns complex combat choreography. But the game also looks very decent. So for fans of graphics and games, there is also a reason to take a closer look at Black Myth: Wukong. On September 9th, Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2, sequel to Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2011. It's a third-person shooter very reminiscent of the Gears of War series. The main character is a space marine from the Ultramarines Order, who, for the glory of the Imperium, fights against the all-consuming predators, the Tyranids. Epic action, impenetrable pathos of the Warhammer 40K universe, and cooperative play with friends, what else is needed for happiness? Now let's look at the games that are announced for 2024, but so far without an exact release date. Is it really S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2? Heart of Chornobyl will finally reach our screens in the first quarter of this year. A new part of the worldwide popular video game series was announced back in 2018. The concept remained approximately the same as it was. In the previous parts, the player transforms into a stalker who explores the anomalous zone of the Chornobyl nuclear power plant, fighting monsters and falling into dangerous traps. S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 on the innovative Unreal Engine 5 should become one of the most beautiful games of 2024. The concern is that the project has long fallen into production hell, and we were never shown any detailed materials on the game. S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 was not just another shooter for a few evenings. This game has always brought some kind of innovation in gameplay or graphics to the gaming industry. In any case, we hope that the newest S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 will retain its unique atmosphere and mystery, with a month or two left before its release. The long-running Vampire the Masquerade, Bloodlines 2 should finally be released. The sequel to the 2004 game, which was released in an extremely raw state, but has become truly iconic. The sequel comes out after a long 20 years. Publisher Paradox Interactive changed developers several times, eventually settling on the Chinese Room Team, the authors of the indie hit Everybody's Gone, to The Rapture. But the setting and genre have remained unchanged. This is an action RPG set in an urban fantasy setting, where vampires and other entities secretly live in the modern human world. Bloodlines 2 takes place in Seattle. and the main character will be a bloodsucker who woke up after 300 years of sleep and began to settle into a much-changed world. The player will be able to choose the style of passage and the clan to which his character belongs. Next up is a remake of the original Gothic. This is a full-fledged reworking of the cult role-playing game of 2001, a dark fantasy RPG that marked the beginning of a franchise that eventually went on a long pause. The last serialized Gothic was released in 2010. This will be a complete rethinking of the original, with modern graphics on the Unreal Engine 5, an updated soundtrack, and new dialogues. There are few details, but the game is attracting a lot of attention from old-school players. The German fantasy game remains, for many, the standard of the genre, although it is already very outdated. Therefore, fans are closely following this remake, important for the entire gaming industry, in order to once again plunge into those same adventures and introduce a new generation of gamers to them. Next, Avowed for PC and Xbox Series XS console. Developers from Obsidian Entertainment are developing their Pillars of Eternity universe in an unexpected way. The first two games are old-school isometric RPGs, but Avowed will be an action RPG with a first-person view. Therefore, there will be no turn-based battles and an endless open world you can only travel through a few zones. Overall, the game looks interesting, like a mixture of Dark Messiah of Might and Magic and Skyrim. But the small number of details is alarming. After the announcement in 2020, little was said about the game, but the release date still remains relevant, or rather, the release this year. Frostpunk 2 is also due to visit us this year. This is the second part of the urban planning simulator, which takes place in a snow-covered post-apocalyptic world experiencing climate change. In the 19th century, the sequel will unfold 30 years after the events of the first part. Humanity discovers oil, which leads to new catastrophic problems. The player, as before, will have to develop his settlement, maintaining a livable temperature. We are waiting for more dynamics and development of the ideas of the first part. Finally, this year we will also be able to plunge into the wonderful atmosphere of Little Nightmares 3. The horror platformer trilogy will be replenished with the third part. This time, the main characters will be new characters, the children of Lo and Odin, who travel through nowhere trying not to die. The series changed developers. The creators of the original Tarsier Studios lost the rights to it, so the publisher Bandai Namco Entertainment entrusted the prequel to Supermassive Games Studio. She made ports of Little Nightmares 2 for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, but is better known for the popular cinematic horror films Until Dawn, The Quarry, and the whole series The Dark Pictures Anthology. It sounds promising after the party portfolio, but we will see if the atmosphere of the original will be lost this year. Incredibly, The Wolf Among Us 2 will still reach us this 2024. Resurrected from oblivion, Telltale is working on a sequel to its 2013 hit. The setting is the same, the world of fables, aka fairy tales, which came out of the popular comics of the same name by Bill Willingham. Due to the complex history of Telltale itself, the game was stuck in production hell. It was announced back in 2017. But now it seems that the project is in a stable state. The Wolf Among Us 2 will be the plot prequel of the first game and, as usual, will be divided into several episodes that do not come out at the same time. We are also waiting for Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2, the continuation of an action-adventure wrapped in psychological horror. In the first part, we plunged into the German-Scandinavian world of the dead Helheim, solving riddles, fighting enemies, and going crazy with voices in our heads. Hellblade is the standard of binaural-sounding games. In the second part, we will have a similar experience, but now shamanism will play a big role, and the action will unfold in Iceland. We are waiting for incredible graphic beauty and Unreal Engine 5 plus the masterful motion capture of actress Melina Juergens and even cooler sound. Finally, we will be visited by the remake of Silent Hill 2, a full-fledged remake of the creepy 2001 video game on the Unreal Engine 5. The plot remains the same, widower James Sunderland receives a letter from his late wife Mary, who invites him to come to the foggy town of Silent Hill. The remake is being handled by Polish developers from the Studio Bloober team, known for the horror films Layers of Fear and Medium. The updated Silent Hill 2 should mark the rebirth of the entire series. Along with the remake of the second part, Konami Publishing House, after a long break, announced several more games in this horror universe. We are really looking forward to this year's Star Wars Outlaws, an adventure game. In the Star Wars universe, the action takes place between the 5th and 6th episodes of the saga. The criminal Kay West is going to commit a daring robbery, and in the process she will have to visit Tatooine and several other remarkable planets. The gameplay will combine open combat and stealth elements, and the creators promise a non-boring open world and the atmosphere of the classic Star Wars trilogy. So far, everything sounds good. But the previous project of developers Massive Entertainment, a subsidiary of Ubisoft Studio, released at the end of 2023 Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora. Even though it showed excellent graphics, it was quite boring and nondescript in terms of gameplay. We hope that the game under a brighter license from Massive Entertainment will be more successful. We are also waiting for Hades 2, a beautiful roguelike, in which the player will have to die over and over again in the setting of ancient Greek mythology, fighting crowds of enemies and improving his fighting skills. In the sequel, the main character will be Malino, the sister of Zagreus, the hero of the first part. The goddess of nightmares and the princess of the underworld will have to defeat the titan Kronos, who challenged the inhabitants of Olympus. Like the first Hades, the sequel will be released first on PC in early access, and the release on consoles will take place later. And of course, the long-awaited Hollow Knight, Silksong, is also due to be released in 2024. This is the sequel to Metroidvania, which was released in 2017 and is considered one of the best modern games of this genre. Silksong has grown from an addition to an independent game. The main character in it will be the insect-like Princess Hornet, who was one of the bosses in the original. She will fight enemies as she travels through a new, decaying kingdom. The game will appear in the Game Pass subscription immediately after its release, but it is unclear when this very release will take place. Silksong was announced back in 2019, but news about it appears extremely rarely. The developers were going to release Hollow Knight, Silksong in the first half of 2023, but eventually postponed the release indefinitely. It is possible that the game will not be released this year, but if Silksong is released in 2024, then the year will definitely be remembered. That's all for now. We are waiting for new game announcements this year. Subscribe to the channel to follow the coolest together.